raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio, and I will be taking you beyond the veil this evening. I am joined by my little grandpa-roo, Mrs. Gio. How are you doing today, Miss Gio?
I'm good. How are you?
This morning, actually, I should say.
Yeah, this early morning.
I know.
I cannot hear anything in my headphones, and I don't want you to turn them way up, but this is going to be an interesting show. I don't have to tell you things are bad. Worse than bad. So there are a lot of things happening in the world right now that aren't looking too good for the rest of humanity, but we will always be there, rain or shine, whether it's 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. We will always be there for you guys because we love you guys so much. And you guys keep us going. You really do, because the last few days have been a little bit weird. Like, I don't know if it feels to you guys or not like this, but to me it feels like you're living the same day over and over again and saying the same things over and over again. And I don't know, maybe it's because all the faces maybe look the same because they're all wearing the same thing, or I don't know what it is, but it seems like there are a lot more glitches in the Matrix too, where things that shouldn't look a certain way are definitely looking a certain way, and then it's just very strange how that happens.
That is very true. Can you hear now?
No, I cannot. Okay. So I think if there's an issue, we could probably just address it in the middle of a break or something. You can go ahead and pick it up if you want. But we have so many people that are in the chat. It's amazing this time of day how many people are right there ready to listen. Sharon Rose, Leanne, Hidden Nugget. That sounds like it'd be something that'd be from the Vegas area, like the Golden Nugget. EK. There we go. I've got it now. Yep. Oh, it went away again. There we go. That's it.
All right, we're good to go.
That's the kicker. Yep, that's it.
All right.
EK said that they're new. Ellie, and she's a Greek Aussie. That sounds like a nice combination. So nice to meet you, EK, Ellie.
There's a lot of Greeks down there in Australia.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the hell is going on in Australia. It's just, it's insanity. It's bedlam. And I feel for you guys and gals down there. It's really bad. That was actually on my list of things to talk about, too, what's going on in Australia. There's riots all over the place. Of course, mainstream media is not covering them at all. They're trying to say that it's just truck drivers, but in actual fact, it's everybody. It's nurses, really? It's doctors, it's regular people. Nobody wants to take this vacation. And we're finding here in Las Vegas as well, and I'm sure you're finding this in your local region as well, there's no workers.
No.
There's no workers for a variety of reasons. Number one, they incentivize not working. But number two, I don't think anybody wants to take this. And because nobody wants to take it, then people, they're not able to find staff.
There's "we're hiring" signs all over the place, but nobody has an actual job.
Jack in the Box, which used to be open 24 hours, closes at 10 o'clock now.
Yep, Taco
Most
Bell.
Most of these places you go in the middle of the night, they close. We went to Denny's the other day. The girl was cooking and waitressing
and serving at the same time. Yeah.
You just went to a restaurant yourself just a little while ago. Exact same thing.
One person ran the whole shebang. Yep. Yeah, which is unsafe for one thing, but it's also very indicative that there's something going on where people are not wanting to work. What would make people not want to work in an economy like this, Chris? What do you think? In an economy where gas is as much as it is, and rent is as much as it is, and electricity has suddenly almost doubled, why would anybody not want to get a job?
People are sick and tired of what's going on.
Yeah.
And there's been some shifts that have taken place. I want to talk about the timeline shifts. the shifts of the previous timeline, things are starting to fall into perspective. So we're understanding what happened on 11/11 during the Luxor ritual that we did at the Luxor Pyramid here in Las Vegas, which ties into the Matrix reset that we did in the Great Pyramid, which also ties into 12/21. Timelines were eliminated, and we have some insight into some of those timelines that were eliminated. It seems like the game is rigged, and it's always been rigged to go in a certain direction. And I don't want to give these beings, entities, viruses in the system more credit or more power than they deserve. However, they're manipulating things on a timeline scale. This isn't just a 3D manifestation. This is a war being fought in the ethereal realm. And we've been caught up in the middle of it, and they've been shifting things in one direction or another to try to find their optimal timeline, while we have also been shifting things back and forth. But they have created a series of choices that can be made by certain players, the population as a whole, to manipulate certain timeline shifting events to move things in one timeline or another. And we've just been kind of the counterbalance and counterweight to all of that, to try to bring it to the most positive timeline. And while things are bad, and I don't have to tell you things are bad, we know things are bad, worse than bad, this seems to be the most optimal timeline. And we've gone through this cycle before. We went through these timelines before, and there was destruction in every single timeline. We might get into that into the Patreon section, which is patreon.com/btvtribe, where we get into the more esoteric stuff from Beyond the Veil. And we have been getting a ton of Patreons. And there's a couple who have signed up for $100 a month. One who signed up for $100 a month, and one that signed up for $50 a month.
That's amazing.
I want to acknowledge them real quick and say thank you very much. I'm not going to name any names because I don't know if people are okay with that. Some people list their Patreons. We would love to do that. But I do want to reach out to those two individuals and ask them what type of show they would like us to do, and if there's any particular guests they want us to have on. And we want to do that to say thank you for being such large supporters of BTV. A lot of people have been sending super chats. A lot of people have been buying AyaLife, AYALife.com, our CBD oil. It's been flying off the shelf. Just for anybody who's placed an order recently, we are behind a couple days again. We like to do same day shipping, but we are behind a couple days again because they just keep flying off the shelf. I might plug AyaLife here in a little bit, but we get comments after comments in our videos.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we get comments on YouTube about, oh, I just got my AyaLife. It's working so well. You read the chat. People are talking about it in the chat. I don't want to make this about AyaLife because I don't want to make this a big AyaLife plug. However, there's a couple things on the agenda that I want to talk about. First and foremost, we're going to start from the 3D, then we're going to work our way out. We may also get into the Matrix 4 trailer breakdown frame by frame and kind of figure out what the story is telling us in the Matrix 4. And of course, it's coming out December 22nd, 2021, which I find to be a very interesting date in and of itself. But I'm wondering if some of that might be applying to some of our journey. And so it wouldn't surprise me if the Matrix 4 takes place in a similar scenario as to everything we've been talking about from January to this point on. Mm-hmm. And let me explain why. We have seen this phenomenon over and over again. August of 2017, I talked about seeing this big octopus coming out of the eclipse. And then there was like this big activation point at that time. Stranger Things 2 comes out at that October and is about this octopus that comes out of, that's interdimensional, trying to break into this dimension. We've seen many movies, films that have pretty much followed a lot of the BTV material that we do here. And I'm not saying that they took the BTV material, even though they might have in some cases. I know that there's a movie called The Mandela Effect. It's based on a programmer who wants to change things and all that. And I was like, that's a little bit too close to our story to just kind of ignore. But all these are coming out after the fact. And as I've said before, like Stranger Things 2, when that came out, that had to be written and produced well before we saw what we saw in the eclipse. But nobody saw the plot until October. So what I speculate is that we as creators are able to tap in and pull information out, gnosis from within ourselves, energies from the background, and that comes out in art, that comes out in movies as well. There is some analysis that the Matrix itself actually will create movies based on previous timelines or experiences. So once we've shifted from one timeline to another, the memories are then able to be superimposed with a movie rather than remembering, hey, we shifted from one timeline to another. And it's all a design by the Matrix itself.
Right.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but it was an interesting concept when I heard this one individual talking about it.
That would be pretty clever, actually, because what do you believe? Do you believe your own like foggy memories, which they've proven that they took people that had just had a very intense experience, and they had them do write a little essay about their experience, and then 15 years later, they had them write an essay about that exact same experience, and it was totally different than what they had written 15 years earlier. So what are you going to believe? Are you going to believe that foggy memory from 15 years ago? Or are you going to remember, oh, okay, I just got that from a movie. I just remember that from that movie I saw.
Well, I heard somebody else talking about the state of the world as it is today, and they said it sounds like something right out of a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
And it really does.
It really does.
Now, if you go back to a few of our shows back from 2018, 2019, what we were talking about is how the New Age, and I'm always picking on the New Age, but actually I've got some interesting Facebook posts that Nick Bravo posted about Jay Widener, who, when we went to Gaia and did a few things with Gaia, he treated us very well. So did George, so did everybody else. It was what was going on in the background of Gaia that I picked up on, and then sure enough it came out. But Corey Good and all of them are suing each other and throwing each other under the bus and everything like that. It's all like imploding, like the whole Blue Avian thing, it's just imploding.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, it was all to consolidate the truth movement and the New Age movement to push what we're in right now, which is the mandatory vacations and everything else, and bring it in on a spiritual level. But I'm not going to go into that whole rant because I seem to do that on every single show. But for the new people out there, that's one of the reasons why I pick on the New Age so much, because it is a controlled opposition program that a lot of people are stuck in, but I'm seeing less and less and less people stuck in that program. We came out and we started saying, go fuck yourself, and how powerful go fuck yourself is. And all of a sudden, it all shifted from love and light to go fuck yourself. And I thought that was brilliant. That was beautiful. Because the word go fuck yourself, it's very interesting, because what does it mean? Go fuck yourself. And I'm not saying those words in particular, but the mindset of I don't give a fuck it all, go fuck yourself. That is taking your own power and saying, I'm drawing a line in the sand here, and I'm not going to let you violate this particular space with the bullshit that you're spewing, or the attacks that you're sending me, or the negative energies or negative vibes that you're sending me. And the word namaste is used interchangeably, in my opinion, like bless your heart is in Texas. It has various meanings. Sometimes it can mean bless your heart. Sometimes namaste means namaste. Other times it means fuck off. Other times it's snide comments and snide all this and that. And I dealt with a few New Agers over on TFR, and they had that really shitty attitude where they're insulting you, but they think you're too stupid to realize that they're insulting you. And so I was like, let's be real. But go fuck yourself, it's like an energy thing. Like, I'm not dealing with this, but at the same time, telling somebody to go fuck yourself, what happens when you fuck yourself? You feel better. You get a dopamine release. So it's like, hey,
go make yourself feel better.
Go make yourself feel better. It could also mean that. There's so many different phrases, but I've seen more and more people saying go fuck yourself instead of namaste, love and light, and all this, et cetera, and finding the power within that. So we've really shifted the zeitgeist out there. And I don't mean to pat ourselves on the back here, but I'm really happy to see the zeitgeist being shifted like that, where it's no longer the love and light bullshit. It's no longer all of that. But Jay Weidner posted some things about them just really just tearing into each other and their true colors being revealed for what they are. So on that note, taking a step back, let's see the world for what it really is instead of the rose-colored glasses that we would like to see in the world. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to put on some rose-tinted goggles and just see the world. And I wish I can come on here and tell you everything's great, everything's fine, we're going to ascend, we're going to do all that, etc., etc., etc. But things are getting bad. So let's start with a 3D really, really, really quick, unless you wanted to jump in.
No, please go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going to turn on the air if you don't mind. It's getting kind of warm.
No, go right ahead. So the first thing that came across my field is I guess let me preface it by saying this. I did a couple of videos that I wound up taking down from YouTube where I was talking about General Milley. I was talking about how Nancy Pelosi and General Milley basically took the presidency away from Trump on January 6th. And I took it down only because the quality of it was so bad. We have been having horrible internet outages here in Las Vegas. Our internet's been going up and down and up and down and up and down, so much so that we haven't really been able to do any shows because it's been so dodgy. And they've been doing these planned outages as well, almost on a nightly basis, from like 12 o'clock to like 6 o'clock in the morning. It's been really bad. But that's the only reason why I took them down. But I got a couple of snide comments for taking them down, and I just want to put on the record out there, I didn't take them down because the information wasn't valid. I took them down just simply because the quality of it was so poor, and I don't want that kind of poor quality on our channel. And you can't see this when you're live streaming from your phone. You can't see that it's pixelated and a bunch of bullshit. But it's becoming mainstream news, and before we said it, it wasn't mainstream news, but I knew it was going to be mainstream news in a couple of days. And sure enough, it's all over all the mainstream about how General Milley was in contact with the Chinese general. And he basically told them, if there is any kind of strike or anything planned, I will let you know first. General Milley went so far as to say that they have a say in the decision-making process as well, and they won't let a strike against China happen. So I want to get into that here in a little bit, but I just wanted to put on the record, the only reason that I took that video down is because of the poor-ass quality of it. We're going to go over the same material now, and we have a little bit more insight in it. But the first thing that I wanted to draw people's attention to is this MasterCard. And MasterCard unveils their new carbon calculator tool for banks globally as consumer passion for the environment grows. So what they're implementing here, I'm not going to go through the article, but it's basically a MasterCard. And this MasterCard checks your carbon emissions and what you're buying based on your carbon footprint. And it will shut itself off if you're buying too many things that have too high of a carbon footprint to them. And that's just one step. It's also going to go into steps where they're saying, well, you've eaten too much salt, or you've eaten too many fatty foods, or you've eaten too much of this, too much of that. And it won't allow you to make their purchases. This is a proof of concept that's been put out there, and it's part of this New World Order agenda and complete and total control, all based on climate change, all based on fear, all based on, the whole zombie virus situation that we've been dealing with. And this is the New World Order that they have been talking about bringing in. So this is just one facet of it. There are calls right now from other countries, but I couldn't find the article pre-show. But what they were talking about is they were talking about how they want to have digital currency. And some countries right now, I want to say it's UK or France or something like that, where they limit the spending of people and they don't allow them to buy anything on any kind of cards. And they were even moving into cryptocurrency type stuff and controlling cryptocurrency to if you're buying anything that they deem is quote unquote non-essential. So they're bringing in essentially China's social credit system. And there have been a lot of things that have happened, like Epic servers was just hacked, and that ties into all of this. Let me see, I've got a list over here of everything. The Melbourne uprisings. We've got the PayPal regulations as well. All of the big banks right now are honing in and focusing in on anybody that thinks for themselves to bring in this China social credit score. They're just not calling it a social credit score. But it's interesting the way China's social credit score works. Everybody's born with the same amount of credit scores. And things that you do and things that you post affect your credit score. And if you make a social media post that is controversy, that affects your social media, social credit score. If you help a little old lady cross the street, that helps your social credit score. If you're speaking subversively about the government, that affects your social credit score. If you have gatherings, for example, in a time of lockdown where you're not supposed to have gatherings, it lowers the social credit score. And with a social credit score, the higher your social credit score is, the more benefits you get. You can live in better places, better apartments, you can get better jobs, and the lower your credit score is, or social credit score, then the less services you have. So you can't get health care, or your health care is more expensive. But if you have a high social credit score, then you can get free health care. If you have a low social credit score, you can't get on certain trains, you can't go to certain areas, you can't get on an airplane. There was a journalist who was exposing the Chinese social credit score system and the Chinese government, and then one day he found out that he couldn't even buy a train ticket. And there was no way to dispute any of this. There's no way to get your name off of that government list, and he was watched and completely destroyed financially as a result. So we're seeing the United States building up the same kind of infrastructure in order to create the same type of systematic control. And it's starting with MasterCard. And MasterCard is just a test run, but at the top of it, we have the big banks and the banking corporations, and they're slowly either outlawing cryptocurrency or they are making their own cryptocurrency that they control. So they can turn off your cryptocurrency chip, they can turn off your bank account, they can turn anything off like that for whatever they want. And because they're doing this under the guise of climate change, then that is so broad that it opens up the doors for so many different things. You're buying too much meat. You've bought too many electronics. You smoke cigarettes. You've bought tobacco. All these different things that can affect your social credit score. And it seems like we're moving in that direction. And the way they enforce all this stuff is they have people that work for the government that are normal citizens, and they rat each other out. There's literally people that you don't know. It could be your next door neighbor, could be the guy sitting on the bus next to you or sitting on the train next to you. It could be one of your coworkers. It could be all the cameras that they have set up everywhere. They're watching and they're reporting back. If you do something good, like walk a little old lady across the street, somebody may see that and write that down, and then you get points on your social credit score. If you do Facebook posts, you get points taken off. But we've already seen them training people to do this. Remember during the whole lockdown situation where they were telling people, if your neighbors have multifamily people going to their homes for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, then report them. They're also telling the children as well, and they're asking the children. Then it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And they're trying to get the children to rat on their parents for not getting the vacation, or for having multiple families when they're supposed to be in the middle of a lockdown, or if they have guns in the house, or if they smoke cannabis, or anything like that. And this whole police state nanny system has been implemented slowly but surely. And what we saw in 2020 and now in 2021 is a test run for things that are to come. And January 6th was a key factor in this. I mean, it was the one day that changed it all. So on January 6th, obviously, you all probably already know this, but that created a real world event that can be the foundation for everything that they wanted to do, which is censorship, and really shutting down a lot of the outlets that are out there speaking truth. Now, we know from the last year, and hindsight is 2020, that the term misinformation doesn't mean information that's wrong. That's typically what misinformation means. There's two different types. There's disinformation and there's misinformation. Disinformation is purposeful misinformation to redirect people in the wrong direction. It's something that governments use all the time. Disinformation campaigns. It's the looky-loo, look over here while this is actually going on. It's something the governments have been using since the beginning of time. But disinformation has a purpose to it. Misinformation is just having something wrong. You say something and then it turns out to not be true. That's misinformation, and that's just by mistake. Or you have an opinion about something and it turns out to not be factually correct. But they have taken that term and they've made it so broad, and what misinformation means nowadays. And remember how they started changing the language? They started changing it slowly but surely. Little words changed here, genders changed here, all these little things, preparing the global consciousness for these changes that they're implementing. But misinformation now means anything that doesn't go along with the official narrative, anything the government does not want people talking about. We talked about the RNA-based vacations way before the vacations even came out, because we were reading their white papers and we knew that the only way that they could really deal with this situation. I'm tired of speaking in code, realistically, because there's a lot of channels out there that don't have to speak in code and they don't get shut down. I just saw a video by Dr. Malone, and he did an interview and he talked about all of this. Dr. Malone is the creator of the mRNA technology that they're using. Well, from January 2020 or February 2020 up until, I want to say, the beginning of 2021, it wasn't okay to say that these are mRNA based. They called that medical misinformation. Well, now it's a fact, and all you have to do is look at the insert. Nobody denies that these are mRNA based, and that what happens is, first of all, let me break this down. The M in RNA stands for messenger. So it's a messenger that sends a message to the RNA itself. Well, the body is like a computer. So it being a computer, it runs an operating system. And as I've said before, the DNA is like binary code. It sends off a series of zeros and ones. That sends messages to the RNA, which the RNA then translates into proteins, amino acids, vitamins, everything else like that. But everything is based on those zeros and ones, just like a computer is. This is all zeros and ones. Then that translates through the operating system into all the different things that you see on the screen and all the different functions and so on and so forth. But it was considered misinformation to talk about the RNA. So when you listen to Dr. Malone talking about the RNA technology that he invented himself, a couple of the key things from the interview that I took out is that the RNA technology is way too young and not tested enough to be using under emergency authorization. This is coming from the manufacturer himself, the guy who invented the technology. Number two, he was talking about how the zombie virus, I still will say that in code, can be treated with a variety of other things. That they're calling horse medicine, that has a lot of success. The other thing that he mentioned is that him personally, what he treated himself with for the common cold, we'll just call it the common cold right now, he treated it with Pepsid. Let me repeat that. He treated it with Pepsid, medication for heartburn. And he said he treated himself perfectly with that. And he said there's absolutely no reason to be messing with the RNA when it comes to this. And there's two different types of, there's the live virus, which is like the flu shot. And that's not nearly as, let's say, dangerous. However, it does contain a lot of preservatives, thimerosal, It contains adjuvants. It contains a variety of things, heavy metals that are not good for the body. And these viruses, they mutate every single year. So the premise of this is to take a little piece of the flu, inject it into the body, and because it has a little bit of that flu, then it builds an immunity to the flu. However, a lot of people who get the flu as a result of it because they're actually injecting themselves with the flu. Well, when it comes to the zombie virus that we're dealing with now, we'll call it the common cold again. What we're dealing with here is we're dealing with a program. It's a messenger program that is sent into the body to go and to reprogram the RNA. And so by reprogram the RNA, you're simulating that live virus, but at the same time, you're not sending the live virus into the body, but you're simulating the same thing to trigger the immune system. That is the premise of how this technology works. Now, we can take it a step further and say that technology can then backtrack and go back to the DNA itself. And because it's all like, it goes from DNA to RNA out to proteins and everything else like that. You send something to the RNA, there's no reason why it can't connect with the DNA itself. So this is coming from Dr. Malone, who was the inventor of this technology. So what he was saying is that if a large portion of the population, then you are actually causing whatever you're trying to them from to mutate faster and stronger. And the reason for that is because our bodies built a natural immune system to everything that we encounter. And his words, not mine, the immune system is 20 times more effective. And this is coming from Dr. Malone himself. The immune system is 20 times more effective. So allowing the population to build a herd immunity is the best cause and plan to dealing with any kind of virus. But by people injecting themselves 3, 4, 5 times, that is allowing this to mutate multiple times because it's going to find a way to go around that. And so it's going to keep on getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And people haven't built a natural immunity to it. So by the time you get the 3rd, 4th, or 5th one, your immune system is just completely and totally shot. And this all comes on the cusp of the revelations with Dr. Fauci. This is going in a different direction, but I think this is important to also tie into all of this. Dr. Fauci's emails, of course, we went over those before, but now they have found solid evidence of gain-of-function research happening in Wuhan back in 2014 in particular, where they were mutating bat coronavirus from a bat. Now, it's important to understand that coronavirus in and of itself has thousands of variants. The common cold is a coronavirus. That's why we're going to continue calling this the common cold. But my cat, Sekhmet, has a coronavirus. It has nothing to do, she has FCOV, which is feline coronavirus. And she's asymptomatic, but she just needs a few antibiotics and stuff like that, and she'll be fine. But my other one is fine. But when the vet said, "Can we test for coronavirus?" I said, "Okay, I just want to make sure that you are aware that there are thousands of strains." And she goes, "Oh yeah. Cats can't get what's going around right now." I said, "Okay." I said, "Go ahead, test her, whatever." But my point is that there are so many different variants. So they take a variant from a bat and they try to make it transmissible to humans. That's what's called gain-of-function research. And the reason they do this is for bioweapon technology. That's the primary reason. I mean, of course, they have their whitewashed reasons as to why they do all of this, but they found the documents connecting Fauci to 2014 to bats themselves. The entire Wuhan lab, the entire Wuhan wet market theory has been completely thrown out the window now. However, as I said before, going back in 2020, if you said any of this, they consider that medical misinformation. So it just goes to show that misinformation does not mean that the information is not true. It means that the government does not accept that information at the time. But the thing about lies is that a lie can only be covered up for so long, then the truth finally comes out. And when it's come out so much, they can't deny it anymore. Then they just turn around and say, oh, well, I guess we were wrong. Let's move on with this. There was a fact checker. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I wish I would have pulled it up, but all this is just, off the top of my head now. But he got something majorly wrong. And he started going on Twitter and saying, I can't believe I'm being attacked. I'm just a normal person. I'm trying to get to the truth of the matter. We all make mistakes, etc., etc., etc. And I found it to be very poetic irony that the fact checker was freaking out because everybody was attacking him for being quote unquote wrong. That is his whole job, is to go after people that he considers quote unquote wrong. But then again, what we're doing is we have our information in the hands of these fact checkers and not in the hands of doctors or actual experts. And doctors and actual experts who go contrary to the zeitgeist, or not zeitgeist. The zeitgeist is more like the state of mind or consciousness of a group. The talking points, I guess, would be a better way to frame it. The narrative, official narrative, are being censored and being called misinformation. I'm surprised that interview with Dr. Malone stayed on YouTube as long as it did. But Dr. Malone, I would say, is the definitive expert when it comes to RNA-based technology. Dr. Boshi as well, who came out and said, when you do the vacations like you're doing, what you're doing is you're taking the antibodies, which are non-specific antibodies, and this RNA messenger program then goes into the RNA and rewrites the RNA, and it tells the RNA, look for strain 1, and that's it. So now that antibody, which is a non-specific antibody, has been reprogrammed artificially by the programmers, and it's been changed to only look for that first strain. So what happens is that first strain hits, sees this, mutates into something else. And the more and more people who get this thing, the more and more this thing is going to mutate into something bigger and something worse. And in my humble opinion, it's all by design. And I have to defer to the experts on this. Dr. Boshi, his credentials are unbelievable. I think he was Stanford. I know he was on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I think he also was one of the head virologists with the WHO. And his main thing was he was a virologist that was testing on animals, because that's how you test all these things first. You test them on animals first. And so they started calling him a veterinarian. But his credentials speak for themselves. That's the process of approving all of these different things. And that's one of the reasons why the FDA is supposed to be approving all this stuff. But as Dr. Malone was stating, emergency authorization is not suited for this technology. In his words, not mine. This goes against everything that he has learned and everything that he understands from all of his experience of medicine. And his words, not mine. The mainstream media has been hijacked by Big Pharma. Doctors have been pushed out of the way, and we're hearing nothing but the propaganda from the talking points and the narratives. Now, I have a few ideas as to why. Number one, of course, we're in the middle of a depopulation program, and we're watching that depopulation program happen. But number two, I think it also has to do with the mighty dollar out there, and the fact that they dumped billions and billions and billions of dollars into this research to try to develop something so quickly that now they're trying to recuperate their losses because people are wising up to this. And if I'm correct, the FDA, under emergency authorization, approved the second, but denied approving a third, because even the greediest of the greediest out there are coming to a point where they're saying, hey, hold on, there's something seriously wrong here, and we're doing more harm than we are good. And it's amazing to watch this happen. So that's one of the positive things that's coming out of this. And then, as I mentioned before, we have all of these workers who do not want to go to work because they don't want to get this. And there's a lot of events that are happening, and they're requiring a passport, and people just are not going to them. So we still have a chance, in my opinion, to fight this. We still have a chance to turn this around, but it's going to take the masses out there. And I don't believe that the majority of the population out there has taken one of these. I just don't believe that at this point. They say it's 70%, 80%, but when you take a look around, there are literally help wanted signs everywhere. And it's not a lack of people. It's not a lack of people not wanting to go to work. I think it's because it's a lack of people getting this thing. So that's one of the positive things. But when it comes to misinformation, they've paintbrushed it with such a broad stroke that it means anything. It means anything that they don't agree with. Simple as that. Now you take that into the banking system, and what happened is that PayPal started changing a lot of their regulations as well. So they're going after misinformation, and they're going after extremism as well. But they went after extremism without defining what extremism is. So they call anybody who is speaking about things that they deem misinformation extremists. They call any opposing views to some of the things that are going on right now in schools. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this without raising the AI flag, but I think I've already raised the AI flag. The whole gender issue with all the different genders, if you want to believe there's 50 genders out there, that is your right too. But you can't force other people to also acknowledge that too. Okay, there's male and female, that's biology. But if you speak against that, if you don't accept that new norm, then you are considered an extremist. If you are opposed to the vacations, you're considered an extremist. If you are opposed to the president and the sitting administration, you are considered an extremist. And these are normal people out there. Moms, dads, nurses. They're firing nurses in masses. All the nurses that were there on the front lines before there was a vacation developed, they're being fired en masse right now and replaced. And I have a theory as to why. The theory that I have is that it's just basic business. If you want a really good employee who's going to do things the way that you want your company to be run, you're not going to hire somebody with a lot of experience, but rather what you're going to do is hire somebody with no experience, and you're going to train them exactly the way you want them to do the job. And somebody with a lot of experience is going to bring their experience to the table and start trying to do things their way. I think a lot of these nurses are just not going along with it. And a lot of these nurses don't understand this whole situation with the vacations. As a matter of fact, I've been meeting a lot of people here in Las Vegas of all different walks of life, from surgeons to doctors to nurses to waitresses to gas station attendants. And everybody seems to be of the same mindset. It's either I am attracting more and more and more people who are of like mind just because of my frequency, or more and more and more people are starting to wake up. I'm walking into a lot of places without a mask on, and I hear very, very, very little from anybody at all, period. So even though there is this mask mandate here that the governor of Nevada said was going to be for 14 days, as if we haven't heard that one before, people are just not going along with it. And in Melbourne, they are tearing the streets up over there. It is bedlam over there because people are standing up for their rights and standing up for what they believe. I'm so proud of the people in Melbourne and in Australia. But at the same time, I feel for them so much because they are under the strictest form of lockdown. And the only thing that I can deduce from this is that Australia is a test run for the United States and the rest of the world as well, because Australia has a small population, and they want to see what they can implement, what they can get away with, and then inch it in slowly but surely in the United States and in other places. And we're at an interesting point right now because our generation, the people who are our age, we remember what it was like pre 9/11, but the next generation is growing up. 9/11 was 20 years ago. All the kids who were born then and just a few years before then are 20, 25. In 5 years from now, they're going to be 30. They're going to be 30, 35, and they don't remember what it was like before that. They think all this is normal. They think the Patriot Act is normal. They think the cameras are normal. They think their TSA is normal. They think all of that is normal. So the freedom-minded people, we are getting older, and they're counting on the newest generation not remembering freedom. And even our generation, it's hard for us to remember what it was like pre 9/11 when you could just go to the airport. And I mean, you could go to the airport before without even having an ID and just get on an airplane. But it was all done for your safety, for our safety. The TSA to keep us safe. The shutdowns to keep us safe. The businesses being closed to keep us safe. The social distancing to keep us safe. The mandatory vacations to keep us safe. Everything was done to keep us safe because Big Brother government loves us so much. All right, so I don't know if Mrs. Gio will be joining us or not. It is 5:40 in the morning here. I've become nocturnal again. I love being a creature of the night. Mrs. Gio, on the other hand, she's a creature of the day. So I'm not sure if she's going to be rejoining us, but somebody had pointed out that that the music is loud. And so I've been trying to turn it down because they say they fall asleep and then they get woken up by the music breaks. So thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I never really thought about it from that perspective. So let me flip the topic over to General Milley really quick, because I think this is something that we need to talk about here, because there were some major things going on January 6th and leading up into January 6th. A book came out, and this book by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa, it's called Peril. And in this book, he talks about how General Milley was in constant contact with his Chinese counterparts, and how they were becoming more and more concerned that Trump was going to launch a nuclear strike before the end of his presidency on China. And General Milley is reputed to have said in many phone calls that his office claims that the phone calls were authorized. But there's other generals, I don't remember the name of the general off the top of my head, but they're coming out and saying we had no idea about these phone calls. And if these phone calls were on the record, well then the other generals should have been involved in those phone calls, because there should have been like 12, 15 people on that phone call. But he was in constant contact with his Chinese counterpart, and he assured them that if there is any action on against China, that China will be warned ahead of time. They went so far as to say that that if Trump strikes, General Milley would be able to stop the strike. And Pelosi and Milley had actually taken away the nuclear codes from Trump on January 6th, or before January 6th. So for all intents and purposes, Trump was no longer the president on January 6th. Now, according to the official narrative and what many of the generals are saying, they're saying that Trump had no intention of doing a nuclear strike against China. No intention whatsoever. There were no plans. There were no reason for any of these conversations to take place. So one has to ask themselves, why does the general feel the need to assure, General Milley feel the need to assure General Lee, I think is what his name is, General Lee Zioching, I don't know, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. But why does he need to assure him that there won't be any nuclear strikes, that the nuclear codes have been taken away from Trump, and that they have nothing to worry about? Now, I can't help but postulate that all of the events of 2020 were contrived, that it was a coup, and that they knew that it was. And so the people sitting in office right now forget about everything that happened during, the whole selection process. They knew that there was something really, really wrong with the situation. And they were assuring the general of China, who then is assuring the Chinese government, you have nothing to worry about, you have nothing to worry about, you have nothing to worry about. Now, back in 2020, it was nothing more than a leak from Wuhan. Not a leak. It was something that happened from the wet market in Wuhan. Then the facts came out that it was a leak from the Wuhan lab. And people are speculating and postulating that it was purposefully released to create this whole situation to lock down the world. And we watched everybody just comply. It was very, very, very sad. I don't need to rehash all of that. You all lived through it just like I did. But why is General Milley, number one, believing that he has the authorization to do something like that? And number two, his role is to follow the president's orders. If the president orders a strike, then he's supposed to carry that strike out, not question that strike or impede upon that strike or warn those who are about to be struck. But again, according to the officials, there were no plans to strike. So why would General Milley need to assure China that if there was a nuclear strike, they would warn them ahead of time? You remember when Pelosi was talking about all this? Like, we're worried about Donald Trump's state of mind. He's going to launch a nuclear strike against China, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I can tell you for a fact, some of our deleted videos that we had to delete from YouTube because we got demonetized, we got blacklisted, we almost got completely and totally banned. And the purpose of being on the Veil is to attempt to preserve our content that goes back, that's more esoteric, especially the timestamps of us talking about certain things, like that eclipse that I was talking about, August 2017, and then being able to say, this, we talked about this on this date, this happened on this date, this happened on this date. It's a record. So that's what's most important, in my opinion. So I removed a lot of these videos. But at the very beginning of this whole situation, I asked the question, I did a video, are we at war with China? Are we in a silent war? And we were hearing during the whole lockdown situation how China was pushing their ships closer and closer and closer, how there were disputes over the sea over there, how American forces were going over there, and Trump was actually sending forces out for trafficking, for human trafficking. We know for a fact that China is really, really, really big in human trafficking. You don't have to follow the pizza stuff to understand that China is involved in major human trafficking. It's recognized by even the United States government. So anybody that says it's a conspiracy theory is just a fucking moron. Forgive me for being so blunt, but they're just fucking morons. The Falun Gong were trafficked and are still trafficked. They're kept in internment camps, and their organs are harvested for the organ harvesting trade that they have going on there. China was stealing a lot of our intellectual property. China was making huge profits and dumping fentanyl into the United States. And every time some president, like Obama, for example, would go and say, hey, there's a problem with the fentanyl, China would go, okay, we can change that up. And they would make fentanyl illegal. And the manufacturers would change it just a tiny little bit and get away with selling it and then shipping it over here. And it was causing massive deaths. And they called it the quote unquote opioid crisis, which I think the opioid crisis was twofold. Number one, it was that we were losing control of the poppy fields in Afghanistan. And now we've lost complete and total control of them. And now they're under control of China. But I think that was by design. And number two, the massive amounts of fentanyl that's being dumped into the United States. But this has been an ongoing problem. And see, Trump made a trade deal with China that they would stop all of that. They would stop the the organ harvesting and human trafficking. They would pay fair tariffs for importing their products here to the United States. And that's how he revitalized U.S. Steel. He revitalized U.S. tech. He revitalized a lot of American industries and by forcing these companies to bring their workers back here to the United States. Biden undid that, just like that. China is one of the biggest producers of our pharmaceuticals. And a lot of the government-funded programs like Medicaid, Medicare, get the pharmaceuticals from China. Well, the way Trump was able to negotiate better deals is he went to India and he said, well, we'd like to get our pharmaceuticals from you guys. What can you offer us? And India said, oh, we can offer you this, and we can offer you that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the number one thing that you've heard me harp on over and over and over again is the price of insulin. Now, I don't have diabetes, but the price of insulin was $1,200 a month for the average person out there. Trump lowered that to $16 a month, 16, by doing that, by going to India and saying, what can you offer us? And cutting China out of all of that. So Trump basically declared economic war against China. And Biden came in and undid everything with the stroke of a pen. I mean, he's on record for not only getting the most votes in recorded history, more votes than Barack Obama himself. So, just for the fact checkers out there. But I think the belief system nature of that. And if you abbreviate belief system, you know what I'm talking about. Not only is he on record for being the most popular president ever and getting the most votes ever, but he's also on record for initiating the most executive orders that any president has in the history of their first month in office. I mean, I don't know, it was like 80, 90 executive orders, something like that. And it was all aimed at undoing everything that Trump did, including re-raising the price of insulin for the average person out there to $1,200 a month. Now, if you want to understand the nonsensical nature of what's going on and who stands to benefit from all of this with a very, very, very simple idea, all you have to do is look at that one particular thing, the price of insulin. $1,200 a month for the average American, raised from $16 a month. What purpose does that serve, and who and why would they do that? Why would he do that? So anybody who's like, thinking that there was anything good that came out of it, just look at that one particular thing and ask, why was that one policy reversed? And I don't think anybody can argue with me when it comes to that. But there was so much more to it. So my hypothesis is that they knew what was going on. They knew January 6th was coming out. The FBI was aware of it. And as a matter of fact, during the impeachment, the second phony impeachment, they didn't even bring up Trump's involvement in the impeachment in January 6th or anything like that. During the January 6th investigation, they didn't bring that up at all, period. Because they knew that Trump had nothing to do with it. The FBI had forewarning of it, and it was a planned event. Now, I'm not saying that it was a false flag event, even though, in my humble opinion, you know what my opinion is on that. But even the federal government acknowledges that this was something that was planned out. They say it was planned out by people like the Proud Boys, or planned out by radical right-wing extremists. And again, we use that word extremist in the broadest sense of the word, in the sense that they've outlined, as I outlined before. So General Milley and Nancy Pelosi essentially took away the presidency, and the military was completely and totally against Trump. There was nothing that Trump could have done. Now, Trump has recently come out and said that there were bodies laid out in Wuhan, China. This has just come out. Bodies laid out in Wuhan, China. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and Google it, just so I can put it up on the screen. And I'm getting to a point to all of this because in the Patreon section, we're going to start to understand how this happened, where things went wrong, and what happened in other timelines as well. So this is all leading to something here. But if you just take a look at the news section here, lots and lots of bodies were laid out. Where's this at here? Trump, bodies dumped outside of Wuhan lab. Lots of body bags outside of Wuhan lab. These are all things that Trump said. Now, we can look in hindsight. Trump was right about everything. Trump was right about the Wuhan leak. Trump was right about the origins of this. Trump was right about the gain of function research. Trump was right about everything. They just called him wrong and called it misinformation until they couldn't call it misinformation anymore. So, looking at his track record of everything that he said, I have to give this some serious consideration. And what I've speculated in the past is that what happened in Wuhan was completely different than what's happening all around the world. And there's something seriously wrong in Wuhan. And I think they released something that was plague type stuff. And all the cameras in Wuhan have been turned off. Live stream cameras, all have been offline since the beginning of 2020. And Wuhan has been all but abandoned. And it's basically like a Chernobyl type of city from what I understand. Obviously, I haven't been there. But we saw some really creepy videos coming out of Wuhan at the very beginning of all of this. I don't think that they were staged. I think there was something seriously going on in Wuhan. Now, there were some coming out of Italy at the very beginning of this, and they said that there were all these massive deaths going on in Italy. And then they had to come out and they had to say 99% of the deaths that were coming out in Italy had to do with something else. So let me see if I can pull that article up just for the sake of inclusion, if they didn't already scrub it. 99% of deaths in Italy due to pre-existing conditions. Yeah, here we go. 99%. This is Bloomberg, okay, mainstream media. 99% of those who died from the zombie virus had other illnesses, Italy says. But you remember at the very beginning of this, everybody was freaking out that Italy just had all these, crazy deaths going on. And there was a video that was circulating. Let me see if I can find that video here. Italy. There was one of this actor. Here it is right here. This actor right here. And he was saying that his sister had died and is laying in bed. And this guy turns out to be an actor, like a legitimate actor. And that they can't even get emergency services to come over there because things are in such bedlam over there.
An Italian man issued a desperate appeal on social media this week, begging authorities to come collect his sister's body, who died at home after contracting coronavirus.
I have my sister here in bed, dead. I don't know what to do. I can't honor her like she deserves because our institutions abandoned me. I got in touch with anyone I could. I don't want to name names for now, but no one was able to give me an answer.
In the emotional video, Luca Francese, an Italian actor, shows his sister, Teresa Francese.
Now, I remember this video in particular. She looks dead. I got to give you that. She looks dead. But this was before they come out with the article that says 99% of deaths had other illnesses. So hindsight is 2020, of course, But I think what happened in Wuhan was something serious, and that Trump was threatened with either something that happened in Wuhan or some kind of nuclear holocaust type situation. But what I theorize is that he understood that there were only two ways to go about this. Either A, do it by force, which would then lead to a large reaction by, speaking of reaction, real quick on a side note, reactor number 4 in Chernobyl has all of a sudden woken up again. I'll put that on the screen too. Nuclear reactions happening at Chernobyl. Oh wait. Yeah, this is from a little while ago. So it started heating up in actually May. Okay, so I take that back. This has been happening for a while. I thought it was something that just happened recently, but it is happening though. May 13th, 2021, May 14th. So back in May, the reactors in Chernobyl started heating up again, which is an interesting thing that's happening that mainstream media really isn't reporting on. We're not hearing too much about it. But back to Wuhan. Wuhan was a disaster. Let's see if we can find some Wuhan videos. Bear with me for just a second. Let's see if I can find the cell phone videos, because it did seem like there was some bedlam going on over there. And I can tell you this. Let's see what this is. Look at how they're dragging those people in, man. That looks like they're in people's homes. Look at that. That looks like they're in people's homes. Actually, there might be some kind of facility, because you look at the mat there, and that mat, I don't know what it says, but it looks like it might be some kind of facility or something. But this isn't the video I was talking about. I was talking about the video of the people in the streets. And I wonder if something was really released there, and they showed Trump, and they said, hey, look, this is what we have here. Also on January 6th, when all the congressmen and senators came out, they were shown something. They were either told, A, we have something we're going to release, and it's going to be a dark winter. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the term dark winter is a military operation they ran in the year 2000 about a smallpox outbreak. And we heard Biden and many others say dark winter over and over and over again. But, or two, they were told, look, Trump has no backing anymore. He's not the president anymore. General Milley, Pelosi, all of them, they all have the nuclear codes. They all have everything. And even if you do start, some BS about trying to overturn this, well, we've already got everything. We've got the military on our side. We've got UN peacekeeping troops, and they're all Chinese troops. And China has actually been heralded as the UN's, let me see if I can just pull this article up here. China, UN peacekeeping. Okay, all 413 members of the 8th Chinese peacekeeping force to Mali have been awarded the United Nations Peace Medal of Honor in recognition of their outstanding contributions to peacekeeping operations. China has been awarded medals for peacekeeping operations. So I just saw a quick question I wanted to address really quick in the chat room, and I might as well leave this in the archive on YouTube. So, I guess I just have to redo it all over again so I can so I can cut the archive properly. But somebody in the comments asked, I'm concerned about iLife if I'll test positive for anything. That is the number one thing about iLife is it's 99% pure CBD oil infused with the spirit of the ayahuasca vine. There is no THC in iLife. The entourage effect works best with THC and CBD. However, there's a lot of people that can't test positive for it. And if we had any THC in there, whatever, we wouldn't be able to ship it worldwide. So we've created a formula that it's THC free, but the ayahuasca vine itself acts as that entourage effect. And we have received a lot of feedback. I'm not going to go into all the reviews, but the biggest compliment that we've gotten from iLife, I mean, we've gotten so many, but the biggest compliment is from Cherie's pain management doctor. And we were up in Idaho at the time. And in Idaho, even though we were living in Washington, they didn't allow Cherie to test positive for THC. Here in Las Vegas, they don't care. But in Idaho, they did. And so we had to create something that she could take that didn't have any THC in it. And her pain management doctor started giving iLife to her husband because it was working so well for inflammation. Inflammation is one of the biggest things. Inflammation creates diseases. It allows the body to have pain. It keeps you from sleeping. Inflammation is the biggest thing. And we're not talking about like inflammation in the muscles, even though inflammation in the muscles in places like that, it helps a lot. People with tennis elbow, things like that. But we're talking about inflammation internally. And so when she gave it to her husband was taking all kinds of anti-inflammatories and things like that. And Cherie has taken so many anti-inflammatories because she has a condition called EDS. And EDS is one of the most painful conditions you can have. It's even more painful than cancer itself. And it's a degenerative tissue disorder where the collagen starts to deteriorate. And so she's super stretchy. She dislocates a bone about 5 to 10 times a day. It's horrible. And every time there's a dislocation, sometimes her shoulder, sometimes her finger, sometimes her toes. I mean, just this morning, her finger was stuck like this. And I had to pop it out, and I heard this pop. And then a little bit later in the afternoon, her ankle was dislocated. And her ankle was a really, really, really bad dislocation. I had to put it back in place. I'm on a couple of EDS groups on Facebook to try to better understand EDS. But a lot of people are saying that they have, it's the most painful condition you can have. And some of our listeners out there also have EDS, and they look at Cherie and go, wow, I can't believe you're doing what you're doing. And one of the main things is they try to treat everybody at first with anti-inflammatories. Well, that just kills your kidneys, especially when you're taking them, in such high doses to try to fight off all the inflammation in your body. So that was the catalyst for creating iLife. And then when her pain management doctor realized that it didn't have any THC, and Cherie was telling her pain management doctor she's been using this and testing negative for THC, like the pain management doctor herself, she didn't care. But because she needed no THC on the paper. She's like, I really don't care. I don't agree with it. It's just, unfortunately, this is what I'm bound to right now. She was a PA, and the doctor himself was still a stickler for all of that because their main office was based in Idaho, so they had to go by Idaho laws. But when she was coming back testing negative for THC over and over and over again and using iLife in massive doses, her pain management doctor gave it to her husband. And then once it started working so well for her husband, then she started putting flyers in her office. And we got a lot of our customer base is people from that office and people from other pain management offices as well, because it worked so well. But that was our main thing, is THC free. So you do not have to worry about testing positive for THC. A little THC helps. I mean, it'll help boost this, no doubt about it. But it's 500 milligrams of 99% pure CBD, and we extract the CBD and then reinfuse it into USDA certified organic coconut oil. So to whoever asked that question, first of all, thank you for asking the question. It gave me an opportunity to plug iLife. But most importantly, you don't test positive for THC. So it's safe for work. It's safe for pain management. It's safe for all of that. And me personally, I don't like THC. I mean, no, let me rephrase that. I love THC. The problem is it lowers my inhibition for eating. And I've already struggled enough with gaining 10 pounds, losing 10 pounds, gaining 10 pounds, losing 10 pounds. And I know not to get high anymore because I'm going to hit the fridge. So I don't. And even the CBDs that were like 20 CBD with 1 THC was still making me a little bit high, and it was making me munchy. So this formula works fantastic, and you don't have to worry about that whatsoever. And we ship it worldwide. We also ship with labels that only say iLife Original Formula when we ship out of the country. And so far, we've gotten it to Australia, we've gotten it to UK, we've gotten it to several places. The only place that we can't ship to is, I think, United Arab Emirates. We've tried, and they have all these customs regulations, and it's not anything to do with the product itself. It's just all the freaking forms that they have to fill out in order to get it. And it's just been freaking ridiculous trying to ship to them. So we found out that the hard way. But yeah, we've been shipping it worldwide with no problem. We also have a buy one, get one free coupon that we have been doing. So you go to the single bottles and type in BTV Tribe, all lowercase. You got to put 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It doesn't matter. You can put as many as you want, but it's got to be multiples of 2s. So we'll put 10 into the cart real quick. Go to the checkout, and I'm going to delete these here. So we've got 2 in the checkout, and you put in BTV Tribe, all lowercase. Some people were having a problem because they were doing it uppercase, but BTV Tribe, TRBE, click apply, and at checkout you will get 50% off. Free shipping in the United States. Shipping overseas is $35. We get charged $37. But that's because we do flat rate shipping, because number one, gets there much faster, and number two, allows us to be able to track the packages after they leave the United States. They have shipping methods that are like $15, $18. The problem is they can take months to get there, and we lose tracking of the package after it leaves the United States, and we had too many lost packages. We do have some very sweet people, though, and there's a very sweet kitty that just came to say hi to everybody. But we have some sweet people out there. There's this one person in particular, and we sent a package, and it was stuck in customs. This was before we switched over to the $35 shipping method, and we thought the package was lost. We sent them a replacement package. They got both of them at the same time. They got one, and then they got the other one like a week later. And they wrote and said, "Oh, I really got to pay you for the other order." And I said, "No, don't worry about it. Just pay it forward. Give it to somebody that needs it." They said, "No, I insist. I don't have all the money, but I'll send it to you a little bit at a time through PayPal." And I was like, "Oh, that's really sweet." So yeah. I just wanted to say thank you to that. But yeah, take advantage of that. iLife, ayalife.com is the website. So check that out. So on that note, let me go ahead and repeat myself. This is a good place to cut the archive, because in the Patreon section at patreon.com/btvtribe, what we're going to get into is the esoteric ideas behind what's going on right now, behind everything that we just explained. We're going to talk about timeline shifting. We're going to talk about how this cycle has been played out multiple times before, how other timelines have been deleted, how Trump has made choices in other timelines that have led to one scenario and another scenario and another scenario. Where we might talk about the Trump time traveler hypothesis or theory. I think Trump is not necessarily a time traveler, but somebody who can see in multiple timelines, as many of you are out there as well, and tie it into why the decisions that Trump made brought us to the most positive timeline that we can possibly be in, but at the same time, the game was rigged to the point to where there was no positive timeline, or something that you and I would consider a positive timeline, which is peace, prosperity, and unity throughout the world. We did an experiment with Trump 2016, and there was a world of peace, prosperity, and unity. And as a result, we tore ourselves up from the inside out. So the powers that be, also can see into multiple timelines. They can also redirect timelines in one timeline to another. And so we've been fighting back and forth, trying to shift things into the most positive timeline where we can at least survive during this whole Matrix shutdown process. But the Matrix shutdown is happening, and Sekhmet, oh, it's 6:30 in the morning. Sekhmet, you're an hour and a half early. You know that cuddles don't happen until 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock in the morning, every morning, like clockwork, she comes and she wants cuddles, but she's insisting right now on some cuddle time. She's like, I want some cuddle time right now. So I played you the first version of New World Order. This is the new version of New World Order. I haven't finished it completely yet, but I'm just going to play the first verse, and then on the other side, we'll get into the esoteric stuff. So to leave everybody here on YouTube, of course, unless you're listening live, ayalife.com, ayalife.com, and also patreon.com/BTV Tribe. And BTV Tribe also is the buy one, get one free code for ayalife. So we will be right back. I don't remember what for. It was for some stupid shit. Here we go. All right. So, we'll veer off into this real quick. I'll give you the quick rundown. Back before the Blue Avians came out, George Kavasalas gave me a heads up on it and said that Gaia TV was going to release some bullshit. And I just thought, no big deal. David Wilcock does this all the time. He did it with Ben Fulford. And his MO is just to throw people under the bus. Say he got the information from them, then when it becomes discredited, throw them under the bus. The information included mass arrests. It included cabal going down. First it was the White Ninja Dragons that were going to do this with Ben Fulford. Then it was the Blue Avians. And what I found suspect about Q is that Q was repeating the exact same stuff, which is one of the first things that I said, wait a minute, I've heard this before many times, repeated in the same fashion. And then a lot of the stuff that Q was saying, like trust sessions and things like that, and trust the plan. I don't like anybody telling me trust the plan. I don't trust the plan unless I know the plan. You know, if I know the plan, then okay, I might be able to go along with the plan, but I need to know what the plan is first before I trust anything. But it was the same thing. Cabal's going to be arrested, mass arrests, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I knew that the Blue Avians were bullshit from the very beginning. I saw a lot of people going down those lines. It was very sad, but, you know, I promised George that I wouldn't mention his name, but I always spoke out against the Blue Avians. Also, when I was over at Gaia, I caught wind that Gaia was being bought out by one guy who was trying to consolidate everything. Gaia TV, Coast to Coast, Godlike Productions. He was trying to buy My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply wouldn't sell. He was trying to consolidate all the Truth Movement and New Age movement back in 2015. I was there at the board meetings. So I witnessed it myself firsthand. And that's when we kind of backed away. We did a couple shows with Gaia, and that was it. Everybody was very nice to us. George was nice to us. Jay Widener was nice to us. But what was going on behind the scenes, I didn't like whatsoever. Then it came out that there were screenshots of this Facebook group where Corey Good had a bunch of people going around and doxing people, attacking anybody that spoke out against the Blue Avians. And up to that point, I thought it was just about money. When it came down to 2020, I realized that it was a large program that was being run. And when we did a show called Operation Bluebird, where we talked about Operation Bluebird, which was a mind control program, and the Blue Avians, and tied those two together, that's when shit really started hitting the fan. And I started realizing who's who. Some people, in my opinion, were controlled opposition. Other people were part of this troll network. Other people, I think they just felt stupid for going along with the Blue Avian stuff, and so started attacking us because it was an ego thing for them. So there was a variety of things that happened. Then all the emails with David Wilcock came out, how he was demanding more money, etc. Then it came out that Corey Good was a fraud. Then they tried throwing Corey Good under the bus, just like they did Ben Fulford, which is David Wilcock's typical MO. Jay Widener posted this a couple days ago. A year and a half ago today, Corey Good filed his $5 million lawsuit against myself, Gaia, Cliff High, and others. Cliff High, also, I might as well say this for the record, we had him on a few times in our time, and one time Cherie even had a seizure right as we were about to go on air, and a friend of ours filled in for us and did a show. So we always had good relations with Cliff High. But when we went on not Red Ice, with Rex, oh man, I don't remember Rex's show's name, Leak Project. When we went on Leak Project, Cliff High was in the chat trolling us. And we were talking about our Egypt stuff, and we were talking about all that stuff, and we were talking about things that actually happened, and Cliff High was like saying we're a UFO cult and all kinds of stuff like that. And from that point on, Cliff High was like no longer invited on the show anymore, because we treated him so nice. And I don't know if you recognized who we were when we were doing the interview, but I just found it to be really low to come and troll us. And it's still, if you go to Rex's video, if he still has the live chat rolling, you can see it in the live chat. And it's like, dude, why would you troll us? You've been on our show many times before, and we've always treated you really nice. But anyways, at this point, I'm just putting all this shit out on the table because I don't give a fuck anymore. I've held all this stuff in for years. Anyways, so a year and a half ago, Corey Good, I guess let me say this too. I don't go trolling people that I don't like. I just stay away from them. It's simple as that. I speak on my own platform. I don't go to other. So to me, Cliff High went it's like Cliff Low now. But anyways, a year and a half today, Corey Good filed his $5 million lawsuit against myself, Gaia, Cliff High, and others. Since then, because of the original lawsuit, he had to file another lawsuit against his former producer and other people who had worked to help him. His former lawyer, who wrote his Ascension course, has filed a lawsuit against Corey Good because he refused to pay her for writing his and Stacy's teaching courses. Gaia has then countersued Corey Good in a lawsuit that is both crushing and disturbing. Gaia contends that Corey Good and his current partner David Wilcock willfully conspired to destroy Gaia and several of its employees. That would be me. It seems that Gaia intends to pursue Corey to the end. I also filed a countersuit against Corey Good. I claim that he's trying to stop my right to free speech and First Amendment. I claim that he is... By the way, his former producer, I don't know if this is in order. Oh, you know what? I think this might be going backwards. I don't know where the rest of this is, but I'll just read this. By the way, his former producer, Roger Richards, who Corey is also suing, doesn't believe a word that comes out of Corey's mouth either. So that would be two people who worked the closest with Corey Good during his 5-year career. Don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. A year and a half ago, Corey Good was being invited to speak on national radio shows, invited to speak at conferences. That's what George told me. George said they promised me all kinds of book deals, speaking engagements, the works. All I had to do was just say that I was the ambassador for these Blue Avians. And he was like, I'm not going to do that. And I said, well, I don't blame you, because David Wilcock has thrown Ben Fulford under the bus. He throws everybody under the bus. That's what he does. He puts somebody in front of him and then throws him under the bus. That's his MO. There were books being written about him. There are articles being written about him. Now, no one cares about him. No one invites him to be on the radio shows or conferences. No one wants anything to do with him. He is radioactive. He has hurt and tried to destroy everyone who's tried to help him. Now he has destroyed his career. He thinks he can reinvent himself, but you can't go home again. We've been there, done that. He went from a celebrity to a pariah in a year and a half. Now he has destroyed his career. He thinks he can reinvent himself, etc. It always backfires. Karma's a bitch. So, yeah, that's straight from the horse's mouth there. You can hear me talk about this all day long, but... I wonder if we can find Corey Good doxing. Yeah, here it is. Corey Good and the doxing. Oh, it's a video. I don't want to play somebody else's video, but see if we find any images. No, there were all these forum posts where he's doxing people and doing all this stuff, and it was really slimeballish kind of shit that was going on. So please understand, when I speak from my heart, and there's this kind of stuff that goes on in the background that I think is, complete horseshit and very unbecoming of people, and I lose a lot of respect for people. Like when Cliff High was trolling us, it's like I expect random people on the internet, but not somebody like Cliff High, who we've had on. Just not even the fact that we had him on multiple times and nothing but nice to him. Just the fact that he's Cliff High, and he should have, professional courtesy and respect for other people. But, it is what it is. And I realize a lot of these people are scumbag ass people, but, I don't go trolling other people. That's my thing. I'm above that. And he brought himself really low doing that. But it was all, having to do with this Gaia TV bullshit and, all this stuff. And it's just, this is what goes on in the background of this, new age garbage bullshit that we've been fed. And I'm so glad that I can distance myself from it. I'm so glad that we have such a wonderful tribe here at Beyond the Veil. And I'm so glad that, I can speak freely without having to worry about anything, And as I said before, there was this thing that Lady Gaga said, and she said, I really freed myself. And regardless of what you think of Lady Gaga or not, I don't think that she's the best person in the world or anything. I was just inspired by her words. She said, I used to always, wonder, like, when I call somebody, like, oh my God, did I say the right thing? What are these people thinking about me? Oh, did I say the wrong thing and all this? And she said, at one point, I just stopped giving a fuck. And I was like, that is so inspiring. And I'm so glad to be in that position now, because I can tell you, the truth about things. And before, I held back certain things because I didn't want to come off sounding like I was attacking somebody. But this is all the bullshit that was going on in the background. But I feel like I should mention it from time to time, because that was a huge operation. If it was a money-making scheme, I don't give a fuck. Who made up the Palladians? Billy Meyer. Billy Meyer made up the Palladians just to make some money. I didn't care. Make up the Palladians. Fuck do I care? But when you're doing an operation, and especially when you're tying it into the Egyptian entities, that's where David crossed the line. Had he not tied it into the ancient Egyptians, I wouldn't even said a word about it. I wouldn't even give a fuck. In hindsight, now I'm glad, because it turned out to be an operation. But he tied it into the Egyptians, and it was like, okay, you're stepping on our toes now, dude. No, we're not going to do that. But that's how it goes in this arena. And it's really sad, because there's a lot of genuine people out there, really genuinely good-hearted people who want to ascend, who want to see a positive timeline, who want to make their lives better. And they look to these fucking con artists, and all they do is just peddle bullshit that makes people feel good. I mean, that's the only positive thing that I can think of, is that it makes people feel good in a time when things are bad. But it's just like that video I was playing earlier with the little berries and everything. Those berries tasted really good to those fish, but the fish went for the berries, wound up getting caught and then eaten later. And so maybe the feel good stuff isn't really all that benign, It is what it is. But we're at a very interesting point in the Matrix reset process. Things are going in an interesting direction. There's been multiple timelines. Some were devastating. This one is devastating as well. But we are jumping timelines. And we're jumping from one to another, to another, to another. And I think it's part of the exit process, because maybe like everything I went over in the Matrix trailer is kind of symbolic of what we're experiencing right now. We're jumping from one timeline to another, or one simulation to another. And we found ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper within the simulations. And perhaps it wasn't even a matter of creating simulations within simulations. Perhaps the simulation in and of itself is a multi-layered, multi-timeline, multi-dimensional system in and of itself. So we find ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper within the system itself. But in actual fact, it's just by the design of the system itself. So we're exiting from one timeline to another, to another, to another, to another. And I got to leave you with this. If you're here in this timeline with us right here and right now, congratulations. Sure, it may suck right now, but we're one step closer to going home. And that's where we're ultimately all trying to get to. We're all trying to get back home. And I feel bad for those that got stuck in the other timeline and were eliminated from the system, both NPC and organic. But we have survived. We have survived. And we are here in this timeline. And we're going to shift it, get back to the timeline that's closer to home and closer to home. And pretty soon, we'll see you on the other side. So, I hope that you guys found this insightful. I would love to hear in the comments what you think about the Matrix breakdown. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, a large portion of this show has been cut. Probably a large portion in the beginning as well, because there was a lot of stuff in the beginning that I was talking about that is not YouTube friendly. The duration of the show is now... There's a lot of stuff in the beginning that I was talking about. Sorry. Is now 5 hours.